B. Frank Network.
Welcome to another special episode, actually a super special episode of Happy Never After H&A Pod. I always am your host, Mara Merrick. Wilfred Padua, also here. Still here from Raw Beef Podcast. Looking extra inappropriate in those shorts. Did you borrow those from me?
No, they're my little
shorts?
sisters.
And then Sergio
Thank you
Chico.
Thank you for your enthusiasm. And of course, I want to introduce our guest, Sam Cila. Clap it up.
Clap it up from the program. Killer, awesome mountaineer. You guys, I want you guys to aspire to be like him. Okay? I want you guys to gain 10 pounds of muscle by the end of this episode.
Could you imagine my body with his shoulders? I would topple over so quick.
Yeah, I said the whole body, not just your shoulders.
I'd be like a dreidel. That's how I wouldn't be able to stay up.
It's hard to gauge. I could tell you got some wits here. How tall are you, Sam?
6 foot on a good day, but 5'11" is what my official record says.
Oh, I'm 5'11" with my little inserts in, so we're good. We're the same.
Wilfred moves around with lifts, like Kim Jong III.
What do you think is the proper length of short that a man should wear? What length do you wear? 5.5 inches? 7?
Well, it all depends on what your legs look like. If you build like SpongeBob, then you probably need a longer pair of shorts. But you got some muscle on your legs.
I got good legs.
Yeah.
Sam, I got good legs. Don't worry, man. I'll stand up and show you after the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wilfred and I are both rocking
I'm sure
3
Sam
inches.
is super interested in seeing your caramel thighs.
Where are you at now? You were in Tennessee last week. Where are you at now?
I'm home in Florida, West Palm Beach.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So, Sergio, tell Sam a little about yourself, your background. He's a boxing instructor.
First of all, I want to commend you on being the hero you are, because listen, the amazing human being we have on the show tonight.
Yes.
Mara recently has booked TikTokers that are 14 years of age who are talking about breakups like anyone gives a shit. So when she booked you for the show, second time, right? Second time?
My bad. She showed up. I was like,
I was super stoked to finally meet you, man. Your story is super inspiring. And I thank you, man. I thank you for your service and everything you're doing to this point. I mean, it's truly inspiring, man.
Sam, sorry I didn't do any homework. Can someone brush me up on?
I told you to do homework.
Yeah, I don't do homework, even though I look like I do.
Can you tell us a little bit again about the program?
Yeah, so so I'm a lead instructor, operations chief, and one of the owners of the program. The program is a leadership and team development company. We work with around 125 collegiate teams, professional, and now we have a bigger footprint in corporate. So we work with about 125 teams annually throughout the year. We teach leadership development and team building, but our process in doing so is in a belief in shared adversity. So our training is very physical in nature. We want to take people outside of their physical, mental, and emotional comfort zones and challenge them after we teach them what great leaders and great teammates do on a daily basis, no matter what team you're on, no matter what battlefield you're on, so that you have an opportunity to compete for championships. Prior to that, I served in the United States Army, where I retired as a staff sergeant. I was stationed in Fort Hood, served combat tours in Iraq in 2004 and 2005. I was caught in an ambush in July 4th, 2005, 16 years ago, just the 4th. In that ambush, I lost most of my left arm. I had my brachial artery severed a half inch from my heart. Took severe shrapnel wounds on my left side. I've undergone more than 50 surgeries to correct the damage. Ultimately, in 2008, I elected that my left hand amputated. Since that amputation, I've tried to stay as active and competitive as I can. I'm a 3-time member of the U.S. National Triathlon Team. I've had the privilege of representing Team USA in 3 triathlon world championships. I'm an Ironman World Championship finisher in Kona, Hawaii. Raced my bicycle a little differently than Mara did, but raced my bicycle from Oceanside, California to Annapolis, Maryland, in America's toughest bike race. I went with the wind at my back.
Yeah, with the wind.
With the wind, so that made it a little easier.
That's nice.
And I'm a high
God
altitude
was on your
mountaineer.
side. That's nice.
Yeah, I'm a high altitude mountaineer. I've summited some of the world's highest mountains. I've summited all the highest peaks here in the continental United States, and passionate about what I get to do every day and who I get to interact with. And so I'm very fortunate.
Well, Sergio's a lot like you. He boxes underneath a tree by the park, and he lost half of a finger in a salad-eating accident, I think.
See? You see that? It's a real finger.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I actually lost on a table saw accident.
So you guys are the
But
same.
it's crazy, right? Like during my time of recovery, I tapped into like a world that was like, oh shit, I can do certain things that I was scared to do. So I can only imagine the magnitude how you're affected by your hardships and inspired by it as well. Because prior to cutting my finger, I wanted to do stand-up comedy. I wanted to, box, like do some amateur boxing, but that gave me the push. But it feels so silly and trivial talking to you and giving your experience. But it all kind of is the same like wave,
Sergio, I'm a big believer that someone's adversity is no greater than their adversity, be it physical, mental, emotional. Your adversity is no greater than or less than someone else's. What makes it different is how you address it, how you attack it, how you process it, and what you get from it. So it doesn't matter if it's a finger or a hand. How you deal with that adversity is what makes it unique to you. But I would never say that anyone's is less or more than the other person.
I appreciate that. I was comparing tragedies. I was like, damn, man, this guy right here ran Ironmans and done all this, so I feel much better about myself now.
I did. My first client this morning had a cut at the end, and she goes, "Can I bandage it when I get there?" And I go, "Bandage it prior to arrival and never speak of that again." I was like, a Band-Aid? I was like, come on. She's like, I don't know if I can lift it. I was like, it's on the tip of your finger. Stop.
Yeah, but that's her battle, so you should be a little more sensitive towards it, Mara.
I learned something. Just now.
But something tells me, Sam, that you probably always had that in you. I mean, prior to serving and dealing with that ordeal in 2005, did you find that you were always super motivated to do competitions and stuff like that? Or did you feel like you really tapped into it after, that incident?
No, I've always been competitive and always was driven, but selectively. Like, there's a time in your life when you've got a lazy bug, up your ass. I've had that bug, as a young, adult and teenager. But for the most part, I was always motivated and competitive. For most of my life, I've always hated to lose more than I love to win. And I have a fear of being average. That's always been a constant in my life. I just never want to be average. So those are constants.
And you work with a lot of individuals who've experienced the same thing you have.
Oh, absolutely. And
so do you ever find that there's maybe some individuals who don't have that same motivation or drive after their experience? Do you find you have to kind of pick them up and push them, or do you are you experiencing that most people are inspired by the hardships? What would you say the ratio is?
Yeah, is there can you tell a difference between professional sports and then people that also have to get over something instead?
Yeah, I mean, look, I work with college, men's and women's basketball, football. Some of these athletes come from very challenging backgrounds and situations that I've never experienced. I couldn't imagine experiencing. So for them to battle to where they are, I mean, I think it's a huge accomplishment. As far as, veterans that I work with that have experienced some stuff, and even those athletes, I mean, ultimately it comes down to you can get motivated by someone, inspired by someone, but that's just a feeling, right? I mean, that's just a feeling you get. And it's fleeting. I mean, you feel it for a minute, then you either act on it or you don't. I think the real test of their character are the people that get inspired and motivated and then take the next steps to follow through with it. So it's all about the person's personal choice. I mean, you either choose to be a victim or you choose to be a warrior. And most people, I would say it's 50-50. Most people are, happy with just being a victim in life. to their circumstance.
It's funny how that's highlighted in this episode again, because I was on another podcast recently and we were talking about wanting change in your life. And you can have all the seeds planted around you, but if you don't want it yourself, it's just not going to happen.
We just talked about that with your client this morning who has 2 personal trainers and won't make that change.
Right. And,
Really?
maybe it's timing. I'm not sure, but it's an interesting thing how, some people, it kind of, it's interesting because, I mean, sometimes it's timing, right? Sometimes people just need a little more time. But like when I speak to an individual like you or hear stories like you, that's where I'm at. That's where, like, you're right. Motivation lasts a short period of time, but it's talking about that's what I want,
Yeah.
And I want that of other people because that's pushing forward. That's evolving,
But I think like with your client, if we're going to talk about like one specific person, it's like they just need to figure out or start seeing the rewards of like living their life this way. And then once they do that, they can start developing this as a pattern and a regular thing in their life.
Yeah, some of them are just addicted to food.
Yeah, listen.
Yeah, I am. I'm that way.
I think it's fair to say
Only
that
alone when you're smoking weed at night.
Yeah, but that's every night.
But the change
Oh,
it's
wait.
it's going to require a little bit of suffering. And I don't know if people want to address that for a long. It's going to be a
yeah, how do you
period of
address the
suffering.
suffering, Sam?
You just got to deal with it.
Me personally, what makes me successful in the things that I've done, I can suffer longer than the average person.
Right.
You have a high
It's just
threshold for
But
pain.
how do you translate that to your plebes that are trying to learn from you?
I mean, it's choice, right? What do you want? If you want different in any area of your life, you have to be willing to do different. And to Sergio's point, to do different, there's sacrifice, there's some pain, there's some things you have to give up, there's some discomfort, there's failure. You have to accept all those things, and gratification may not be instant. It may take some time. In today's society, I feel that most people don't want to take that. They want instant gratification, instant success, and they certainly don't want to put themselves in a position to fail. That's just my take.
Are you a fan of David Goggins?
I am. I've met David a couple times. I love his stuff. I love his attitude about things. I just don't know how practical it is for the everyday person.
It seems very extreme, right? Because I recently read his book, and just to give you guys he's a Navy SEAL and went through all of it. It comes from a hard background.
You can't hurt me.
Yeah, but
book,
he hurt himself. Right? At the end of the story, he hurt himself. Like, he worked out so hard, pushed his body so hard that he turned into like a rock. He couldn't like work out for years.
Yep.
Whoa.
Because I just think there needs to be a balance. Like, he was extreme for like years. He had to like undo the damage by stretching and doing yoga and shit like that.
He ran himself to where his feet were broken.
Yikes.
His thing is like, if you're fat and lazy and on the couch, get off the couch and go run a marathon.
So, yeah, do you think that language...
That, right? Like,
I do feel like some people that write those books, like I tried to follow this one book on hydration and infrared light, and the morning routine of this gentleman that only had to train 3 people took 4 hours just until he would start any. I was like, who has 4 hours to just do like a morning warm up? I got 3 minutes, 3 solid minutes. What can we get in that? I barely remember to drink water.
Yeah, I mean, it's just making the time to do it. Yeah, David Goggins say he'll stretch for like 6 hours a day. I mean, it's just...
They need to make it like a regular civilian protocol.
Yeah, I mean...
6 hours.
That's like a part-time job at like Best Buy.
There's stuff that David Goggins says and does that I find like those moments of being motivated. Like, I'll see a video of him running, through the desert with his vest on. And I'm like, shit, I gotta go run. Like, so for me, like that, like I find even though I don't agree with some of his theories or his approach to it for the everyday, guy or gal, but yeah, I find motivation in that. So.
Yeah, I agree. Once I completed the book, I felt the same way. But like you, a little sliver of it is all I need. Maybe a minute of him talking gets me going for a specific workout or something.
He's
like
your
that.
Tony Robbins?
Yeah. Get my little Tony Robbins. I I don't listen to too much, but
I went to all of his things
Is
when
he
I was
still
20.
around?
I mean, I think he just made all of his money and was like, thanks, with his
Yeah.
big hands. He was like, peace.
I feel like the
you
last
know?
time we heard about him was in, what was that Jack Black movie?
Shallow Hal?
Yeah, he was in Shallow Hal in the
Yeah.
elevator, and then that was it.
I think he levitates too. He claims that he can levitate too.
Oh, really?
He does the cold bath. He does the
ice baths?
What are that? Wim Hof breathing? Wim Hof?
Yeah,
Have you done Wim
Yeah.
Hof?
I've tried it.
Ooh. Do you believe in the Wim Hof hiking?
No, I'd rather just sit in a cryotherapy chamber for 3 minutes. I don't need to sit my ass in the cold tub of water.
Sam, with coaching and being of service to people, how do you plan out your next competition? Let's say you want to do another Ironman or a marathon. How do you find the time? Because that's got to be supremely exhausting, being of service to people, coaching them, being there physically and mentally. How do you orchestrate the challenge you want to create for yourself?
So right now, as far as the last Ironman I did was Ironman Lake Placid in 2015. So I've kind of moved away from endurance racing, and only because I did it for so long and the sacrifice. I don't mind the sacrifice personally that I have to make for it, but I got to ask people in my family to sacrifice for it. So, on a Sunday morning, you get up at 6 a.m., you eat breakfast, you get on the bike at, 7:30, you're like, I'll see you at 4 o'clock. Like, I got to go for a bike and a run. That's an entire Sunday that you're not with your family. So just because of that and, what I do and the hours that we work and the relationships that we maintain right now, like CrossFit competitions, strongman competitions right now, it's more doable for me because it doesn't really, my regular routine of training doesn't really amp up or, it stays kind of the same. I can fit it all in and I'm not, gone for an exorbitant amount of time. And it's a much cheaper hobby as well.
Understood. What would you say was the most satisfying completion out of all the things you've done? Was it the marathon? Was it the Ironman? Was it recovering from your injury? What would you say is the most satisfying?
As far as an athletic event, when I did Kona, the Ironman World Championships, people were like, hey, you see it on TV and how emotional it is and people crossing the finish line and the athletes that stay for the other athlete that don't finish under the time. They said, a couple of people told me, hey, when you cross the finish line, it's very emotional. And I was like, look, I'm harder than Woodpecker Lips. Like, I don't cry. But, like, whatever. When I cross the finish line and you look across the highway, there's people that are on the run at mile 11, and they're never going to finish in time. And one thing that you notice is they're all smiling, and they're all just in the moment of being at the Ironman. And then at the end of that race, you finish, you go back, you clean up and you come back. There's no more lights. There's no more fans. It's just the finish line. And the announcer is still there just calling out the names of the people who are finishing. And they're never going to get a medal, any recognition for it. That was one of the most exhilarating moments of my athletic. It was just because everyone was smiling. Like we were just so happy to be in that moment. So that, for me, that was a big moment.
So you really took it all in. It wasn't just about you. You was really present with everyone else's experience.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was pretty cool moment.
I think that's how life should be lived, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I ran the marathon. I didn't have the same experience as him. 20 miles in, I was listening to DMX. I was like, this guy's annoying. And I was trying to find motivation with my family. I was like, I'm doing this for my daughter. And then I realized my daughter doesn't give a shit about this. She's laying on her belly with her feet crossed, playing roadblocks at home. Yeah. But I was just trying to tap into different forms of motivation. I did it. It was nice to get it over and done with, but I was like...
Hey, a marathon's a huge accomplishment.
But I definitely didn't feel like, I was like, I'm glad all that training is done. It takes so much time. So I can only imagine what an Ironman feels like, when you're doing
especially with laps.
When you're in a marathon, did you experience this myth about the runner's high?
Yeah.
I got the runner's high with shorter runs sporadically throughout my training. That run, it was there was parts of Brooklyn when you get all the Mexicans out, the Italian neighborhood, and they're rooting for you. Like, New York is culturally rich. You're from New York, you get it, right? Yep. So all the neighborhoods were popping, you go through you're running. Even the only ones who didn't give a shit were the Hasidics. I passed by them, and they were just like, But everyone else is really into it, you know? And I was running through all the neighborhoods, but then when I was going to the Bronx, no one was out.
Really?
No one was
What
out.
mile was that?
Like 20, I believe.
Oh, because they waited
That's
around
rough.
too long.
Yeah,
And that's
man.
when you need it. At 20, you need it.
Yeah, my hips flexed this tight. I was running like my name is Dorothy, like a mid-aged stepmom, like that. But I got through. I felt good. In retrospect, it feels like a nice accomplishment. But definitely, like amateur boxing, those were more like it felt like more like okay, because it's scary, you know. And when you get it over and done with, you're like, okay, that feels good to me.
I'm realizing I don't think I've ever accomplished anything. Like there's nothing that I'm proud of.
What I meant with the Kona reference was actually about like a writer's room. If everybody could stay and work and like cheer each other on instead of being so competitive, and there's a lot of theft in writers' rooms. You know, there's like a lot of stealing of ideas, and I think it just destroys things instead of we need to start lifting each other up and making better things.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about like because there's so much like camaraderie and teamwork in sports and athleticism, and the issue that we have with look, I've watched enough movies. I watch ESPN sometimes, but the issue that I feel like that camaraderie does exist within comedy, but comedy is culturally cynical.
Yes.
So we don't let it be an emotional moment ever, because we're all such jaded people that we're good at like joking out of the emotion. So we don't I'm not trying to brag. I won Boston Comedy Festival with my friends there, and nothing. And when I did it, I was just like, God, I'd made this deal with Renan where I have to give him $1,000 now.
$1,000 for winning?
Yeah, I gave him a portion of the winnings.
Nice.
It was a small portion.
Sam, are you a fan of a stand-up, or you could do without it?
No, I enjoy it.
Who's your fan?
In fact, I love Dave Chappelle. Like Bill Burr.
Yeah, Burr's the man. Chappelle. Yeah, that's some heavy hitters there.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I like guys or girls that are honest about, you know, society, just in today's world. I think there's something. I think it takes a lot of courage to say the hard things and make a joke, make light of it. And I could never. I don't have the courage to get up on stage. I can do a lot of things. Get up on stage and do that. I can never do.
Sam, I want to ask you a question about society in terms of like, because you're coaching a lot of people that are like late teens, early 20s, because they're in college. And do you feel like it's getting tougher to coach these kids through adversity? Because it feels like society, to me, and I'm speaking as a comedian.
I think I agree with you.
It seems like you were saying victimhood, like there is a lot of like, how do I out victim the next person? How do I become the biggest victim in the room, as opposed to how do I become the strongest person in the room?
I think so. At the program, we're big believers of we despise the term kids these days, because kids these days are no different than kids our days, right? What's different are parents, coaches, teachers. They're different. They allow those things to happen. But kids these days right now are leading men and women up a mountain in Afghanistan. I mean, they're on battleships. They're doing. Kids these days are pretty amazing. What's different for kids these days is the telephone, like the cell phone, right? Information is at their fingertips, and social media is different. I'm 48. I didn't have that stuff. I don't know. But I think that parents, coaches, teachers, administrators, we allow all those things. We allow them to play victim. Kid doesn't feel right. Kid has some mental stress. Put him on medication. Tell him that he or she needs it. Don't like the situation. Like we tell them that, hey, you're the most important person. If you don't like the situation, everyone else needs to conform to you. What? We take away their ability to problem solve. So I think today's society is not a fault of kids these days. I think it's parents, teachers, adults.
Yeah, for sure. But as like do you find yourself, I mean, I'm assuming you're one of the few people that are telling them, no, go through the problem, like face the problem. And that's an uphill battle. I feel like when I was growing, I'm 34. I look amazing, I know. But the way I grew up, everyone was telling me that I grew up to face the challenge and to go through it. And I worked in education for 10 years, and I know that I even was part of the problem, was like, oh, this is tough for you. Let's go do something else.
Oh, you would let them do something instead?
Well, so I was like a social worker in a school, and a part of my job was to get students, like whenever a student was like acting up and like having an issue in class, I was one that was like sent to go get them. And the easiest way to do my job, my goal was to get them back in class to learn.
Okay.
The easiest way to do my job was to take them out, distract them for a little bit by like getting them to not think about whatever was the issue that was making them cry or yell in class. So I just like take them, play basketball, get them in a good mood, then we send them back to class. That's not me helping them through an issue. It's me like being like, oh, here's another thing to focus on, and then now that you're fine, let's go back.
But I feel like, I mean, I was belted one time when I was 5 because I didn't come home with my sister on my bike because I stopped to play sidewalk chalk with her best friend. Anyway, I didn't know I was doing anything wrong. My dad belted me one time, and I think after that I knew if you don't act right everywhere, that belt could come for you anytime. You know what I mean? So I was like, I think that needs to come from at home. I feel like you had an unnecessary job.
It has to come from somewhere, though.
Yeah.
Some adult that person trusts.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you believe in the belt? You got belted.
Much later than 5 as well, too.
I learned quick. I was like, nope.
I mean, I think, parents have an obligation to teach standards and values and enforce them and hold kids to them. I just think society in general, we've gotten away from that,
Yeah.
I mean,
I also worked with like a demographic of kids whose parents weren't capable of that because they were working such long hours, had multiple kids, and the long hours didn't amount to a good paycheck. So that was my demographic. Another adults did have to step in and
has that had to change your coaching skills, your coaching techniques?
No, we don't. I mean, we're very firm on the fact that like those are valid reasons of why a young man or young woman is having trouble communicating or staying focused. That's a valid reason, but the competition of life doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like, no one cares about the relationship you have with your mom or your dad. Like, can you get the job done? Yes or no? That's what the enemy cares about. So we're fortunate that that's what we teach, and that's what we won't deviate from that, because in real life, like, those are valid reasons of, like, I've never experienced that, but it's a valid reason of why a kid is having trouble, following the rules or, staying focused. But when you're 25 and you're trying to get a job, your employer doesn't care about your relationship with your parents, where you came from, which side of the tracks you're from. Like, can you get the job done? Yes or no? So we won't deviate from that. We take it into consideration, but we're not going to change anything that we do. We're not going to make excuses for anyone.
What do you think about the Shakara, the Olympic situation, about her being booted for marijuana?
Before you answer that, can I just say, I first thought that was an issue with a transgender person. I had no idea.
Oh my God!
Say this again?
No.
I thought the issue was that she was transgender or something. When I looked at the picture, those eyelashes and that hair, I didn't read the article. Then I read the article. I thought, she got busted for smoking.
Sergio can't read.
I read the article, but initially I was like, I bet it's because they're transgender.
Wrong transgender participant.
There was a transgender participant, wasn't there?
But they were kicked out for too much testosterone. Right?
Oh, really?
Am I right?
Yeah, I think a New Zealand weightlifter.
Yes, and a female Namibian.
Yeah, like wasn't there like a track?
Yeah,
like
but biologically female, she had too much testosterone in her system also. So she was, Well, let's get back to Sam.
Yeah.
Sam, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, if the rules are, I mean, testing positive for marijuana it's not a new rule, right? It's been there forever.
Yeah.
So, okay, you tested positive for it, and now we have 1,000 reasons of why it's okay. Like, you knew the rules. Like, I mean, you can tell me that you've made it that level to the Olympics, and you cannot go 2 days without smoking weed?
No shit.
Like, you have that lack of discipline? Like,
I
just don't get it.
I understand all the arguments, which is that like weed's not gonna, it doesn't help you as a sprinter. Like weed doesn't it's legal in most of America and all this. I was talking with a friend and he was like, why are we like Shakara was a very huge adult about this. Was just like,
yeah, she actually was.
I made the mistake. See ya in 4 years. Like she was very good and graceful about it. And my friend was arguing that like, okay, this is taking away from the way that she handled it. And I was like, but we got to have this conversation to maybe see if it's going to the rules will change the next Olympics.
No, but they've never allowed any drugs in your system at the Olympics.
Yeah, but they never allowed any drugs in your system in America either until we started talking about it.
Oh, do you mean as like general population?
In terms of just like change, if you're gonna like create any sort of policy change and like allow like weed, perhaps.
I feel like we should. Can we get him to practice with some teams, and then maybe you would have like a sense of what being in a sport is like?
What do you mean?
I feel like if you had some experience in being in sport, you wouldn't.
I've played sports.
I can tell that was convincing.
I also do
a physical job.
I have a very physical job, which
but
I understand.
But if your competitor is taking substances that may adjust their performance, it ain't fair.
Well, but I don't think that weed is going to adjust her performance.
Maybe she was taking weed to cover something else up. Maybe there's a big cover up. Who knows?
See, I do work with and this is the toughest thing that I do is that I'm a mover in New York City. So
that's a tough job.
So I like yesterday I moved someone from a 4th floor to a 5th floor. And that's a lot of stairs. It's a lot of shit.
Oh, not in the same building. Like you had to come down 4 floors and then you had to go back up another
4
building.
Floors and actually go down the block with the stuff because she was moving on the same block, then up 5 flights of stairs. And there are people who are on the job and that are high, and it's annoying because they're not good at it. Mm-hmm. They're not as good as they would be if they weren't high. But in this case of like Shakara, I don't think weed is enhancing her. I think if anything, it's probably slowing her down based on what I'm seeing from my coworkers.
Yeah, for sure.
So she's done to the next try. Like that's it. There's not going to be any.
I thought there was like a month. Like she's supposed to like take a month off or something.
Oh, she can't do the Olympics.
So she's done. She got kicked out indefinitely.
Yeah. So I guess a lot of this is how you were raised. Like I've never smoked. I've never smoked weed. Right? I've never.
No one slipped anything in your drink. Try to take you home.
I think one time, like on a date, a girl like broke out a bowl or something, and I was like, trying to hook up. So I was like, oh, I'll take a hit, and just put it to my face and like, yeah, whatever. Oh God, I see stars, whatever. But no, I never had. Never did it. So how I was raised is that it's, I have a 17-year-old son, so I'm dealing with the issue because is it legal? Is it not legal? Is it, it's all over the place. So my school of thinking is that, no, it's not allowed in my house. I don't agree with it. I don't know why it's legal, but that's not for me to decide. But I have to change the way I'm thinking because it's obviously something that's going to be more prevalent as time goes on.
I like that you said that you have to change your way of thinking. It seems like you're willing to conform and hear it out, and you can feel how you feel. But I like that attitude. A lot of people are super gun ho, like that shows that you're open about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things I don't understand. Like, okay, well, people say, hey, I needed to relax Monday through Thursday, helps me relax. Then I smoke on Friday night to get all fucked up. Like, so how does it differentiate Monday through Thursday and then Friday and Saturday night? Like, it's the same shit. Like,
yeah. Do you drink or you don't drink either?
occasionally.
Yeah.
I mean, if you consider Michelob Ultra like a drink, yeah.
Yeah. It's
You're
just,
watching your weight.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what I'm trying to drink, so I drink.
Yeah. I think it's I feel the same way. I think those are the rules. I absolutely
Yes.
feel that way. And I'm sober. Like, I don't do anything. But I also feel that if they're going to do that, it has to be across the board because alcohol is the most dirtbag drug.
Oh, yeah.
You know? I mean, in terms of like how people behave violently and the car crashes.
She could have been like drunk as fuck 72 hours before, and it's not like that's not going to stay in her system.
That's not going to stay, and it's also not going to disqualify her.
Yes, and it's also not going to disqualify. She could be drunk at the race, and it's not going to disqualify her.
Right.
Again, the way that we were raised, like that to me is like okay.
Right.
Yeah, but that's social. Society says alcohol is cool, weed isn't, and then I think the conversation is pivoting a little bit with weed. We're just not at the point where the Olympics, this thing that we hold on such a high pedestal, hasn't made that pivot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, how my son is 17, so I caught him smoking in the house.
In the house.
I lost my shit, right?
Yeah, did you give him the belt?
Did you belt him?
Well, I Spartan kicked him in the chest. Like, I beat him like a man.
Yeah, you dug a well and then kicked him into it.
It's a true story. When I was talking to him afterwards, I had to keep the couch between us because there was very little stopping me from wanting to like seriously hurt him.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's why I had to change my thinking. Had I caught him drinking in the house, I'd have been like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like to your point, Sergio, right? Alcohol is way more destructive than marijuana is, right? So, but my train of thinking is like, oh my God, that's the worst thing that you can do in my house.
Yeah, but I love the fact that you own that and you're aware of that and you willing to admit that.
What brought you to that emotion with your son?
Oh, it's a background thing, right? You just weren't raised that way. Weed was probably like, it just wasn't socially acceptable.
In my mind, you brought illegal drugs into my house.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how I processed it in that split second.
Also, wait, you were in corrections before, weren't you? For sure. Yeah,
I was.
So that probably affected because you probably saw a bunch of people that have been in that life, distributing, that were in the system.
Yeah, well, I stand by this, and this is the argument I have. You show me someone that smokes every day and is successful and doesn't have holes in their game. Like,
oh my God, I asked this same question. Is there anybody?
Yeah, there's probably a lot in our field.
A lot in our field.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in life, is there anybody that's like, we're gonna crush it? I'm super ambitious, and then they're like, tomorrow, we'll do it tomorrow.
I think there's a lot of creatives that can stay ambitious and just use weed to just take a break.
I mean, it's a really big subject and topic to discuss because there's so many ways to look at it. But I do know that for me, I have to change the way that I think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everything in moderation is probably the best answer. I think if you're high, as much as a lot of our peers are high, that's too much.
I bought one of my clients who has cancer some weed last week. I don't do the weed myself, but I was like, this will help you.
Yeah. I mean, I smoke on occasion, but I can tell that it does. Like, I've definitely walked away from it because I was like, oh, I'm not as productive as I usually am. But that is how it affects me. I'm not going to say that it affects anyone else in that same way where it ruins their productivity or whatever.
Yeah.
I just know how, I personally can't even talk to people when I'm high. If I was high right now,
Wilfred locks himself in his house and orders wings, and that's the only time also that he'll eat wings is by himself high.
And when the person delivers the wings, I have them drop it at the door.
Because he's embarrassed.
Don't make eye contact with me.
That's my other thing. If I was gonna do drugs, I don't want to do a drug that makes me like antisocial, slow motion. Give me something
cocaine.
Let's get nuts. Start climbing buildings and acting like King Kong. I don't know. That makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
I could definitely tolerate potheads more than people who drink heavy though, because I don't. When I'm called to the bar like Sergio, And it's like the
yeah.
voices up there and they spit, We heads, they're a little more like subdued and chilled. I could tolerate that more.
But the weed heads, when they come to the bar, if you're working the bar, all they do is like stick their fingers in all the condiments and they're like.
So I guess it's subjective. It depends where you're at in your life, where you're working at,
Do you have to have these conversations with your athletes about drugs?
Occasionally we talk about it, but I mean, that's, again, it comes down to choice. Like I just never, for me, even as an adult, my mornings are more important than my evenings. So getting drunk or doing drugs like at night, like I would rather train with my buddies in the morning. Like that's more important to me. So those things were just never priorities in my life.
Mm-hmm. How do you do the corporate part? I completely understand what you do on the athleticism side, but what about you also work with corporations, correct? Leadership? What happens in that?
We don't really change much. The level of adversity is different, obviously. I mean, you're talking about corporate America versus, athletes.
You make them work out immediately?
Yeah, we still, it's just a different level, but our messaging is the same. Nothing changes because maybe the battlefield's different, but the challenges are still the same. You still have to communicate effectively. You still have to hold people accountable. You still have to hold yourself to a standard. So none of that changes. Just the level of adversity that we have to create is a little easier because it's just corporate America.
What do you do when someone doesn't have any coordination? They have two left feet, Sam. What the hell do you do? How do you keep your sanity from throwing them to a brick wall and telling them, this is not for you? Go to FedEx and get a job. Deliver some packages.
Sergio's dad died, so
sorry,
he doesn't...
sorry.
It happens, but as I've gotten older, I've gotten more patient and just try to come at them another way. Just, we've gotten a little more, me personally, my emotional intelligence has grown a lot recently. So rather than just try to jam it down their throat or break their neck, just use some emotional intelligence, just come at it a different angle.
Yeah, some people learn, but like by seeing it, wording it a certain way, seeing other people do it, moving on from that shit and then going back to it later. You'd be surprised how many people, like if I'm trying to teach them a certain boxing move, like what a roll is, right? When someone throws like a hook, you might roll, right? Keep your hands up, roll. I was trying to teach this to a class one time and all of them had their hands down. They were rolling like this. I swear to God, it all looked like Stevie Wonder on the piano.
Did you drive your Fiat to that?
Yes, I drove my Fiat.
Then they couldn't take you serious.
But like at times like that, man, I'm just like, I need a break. Yeah. I need a break.
Well, coaching is delicate. I used to coach basketball when I was a social worker, and I was back home trying to like teach my nephew some things. We were just playing a game, and I was just kind of like guiding him through while we were playing. And then my brother was hopping in and overcoaching, and like my nephew was just playing basketball with me. And then when my brother would talk, he'd get in his head and couldn't perform anything properly because my brother was nitpicking every single movement. And I was like, you got to let his body do what his body's got to do. Right. And then eventually he'll figure it out.
Yeah. How old was he?
He's 40.
Yeah. Yeah, my nephew's 43. I think he'll make high school basketball for the JV team. My nephew's 12.
Plus at 12 years old, kids are so awkward. And their joints aren't all the way formed yet, so they're just like little baby giraffes still at that point. Mm-hmm. Who knows?
Sam, what would you say is your approach to it? Do you have the same approach? Would you say it's in trying to get your message across to a lot of the people you work with? Would you say it's aggressive? It's more like you let them come to you, or I guess it matters with each individual. What would you say?
As far as method, I try to be as honest and transparent as I can. And, people have a tendency to think that, like we're, that we don't fail, that we're indestructible. And being honest with people, talking about your struggles, I think is a great way to connect, showing that vulnerability. So I talk about, my addiction to pain medication. I talk about, my failures. I talk about the mountains I didn't get to the top of, the races I didn't finish, right? The teams I didn't make. To just be as authentic as you can, you get a little more buy-in rather than just sort of, tell them this is how you do it. I can tell you how to do it. I can also tell you the mistakes I've made doing it. So I think just being authentic and transparent showing a little bit of vulnerability is the best approach. Again, I've gotten a little more emotionally intelligent.
What was the transition that made you more emotionally intelligent? You said it was recent. Was it your last stroke that you had? Didn't you have?
Yeah.
So after everything, he has a stroke.
Well, I would have never been able to tell that you experienced that.
It's crazy. I don't have any side effects from 2 strokes, brain surgery. I'm very fortunate that, I walked away with, other than some blind spots, which are not anything of concern, but I have 0 side effects from 2 strokes. But yeah, that was a big part of it. Again, because when it happened, I already battled back through this adversity, right? And then when it happened again, the doctor told me that, well, you're going to walk with a limp and, your right side is not going to be at full function. So things are going to be more challenging. And I started to cry and I didn't want to do it again. Like I just did not, I thought it was so unfair that, well, I've already done this. And now I have to do it again. And I didn't really want to do it. And the minute that I thought about, well, if I don't do it, I put all the burden on my wife and my family. The minute I say that I don't want to do it, I shift the burden to someone else and they have to now take care of it. And that's really when I started looking at things with a little more emotional, background and, reevaluating how you do things, how you say things, what the fallout of those things that you choose to do or not do, because it affects more than just you. It affects people around you. So that's really opened my eyes to some of that emotional intelligence that I was speaking of.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I feel that also. I think you probably communicate all of that with everyone also. Like when you show up to a practice and you say, okay, it's going to be 40 minutes long. It's going to be grueling, this portion. You're going to have to just push through. You're going to feel this. And also, if you don't do it, the rest of your team has to do extra and they're not going to enjoy that. So it's like if you communicate all of that, everyone puts in more effort.
Yeah. For us, and you guys as coaches, as leaders of your family, it's unfair to hold someone to an expectation if you haven't made the expectation crystal clear. So tell them what the expectations are, tell them what the standards are, make sure that they understand it right down to the gnat's ass, and then enforce those standards, hold them to it. Recognize the fact that when they do it wrong, you correct them, but when they're doing it right, you got to also, when guys or girls are rolling the right way, take the time to highlight the fact that, hey, I appreciate you doing it the right way. Like they're going to want to do it more. So I think that's where we've just gotten away from as coaches and teachers, is we just get away from standards and expectations and we just sort of, fly a little loose on the right and left limits.
How do you coach this? Can I ask you a specific coaching question?
Sure.
Squats, right? Basic squats. You build up, you ramp up your squats, and then you start taking weight off, and then the last set is as many reps as possible, right? So every single time I explain it to my client, I'm like, you could do 30, you could do 50, it's all up to you. Just do it until you break, until those legs don't go anymore. And here's all your guards, and I'm right here. And they always go to my example number and then stop. And I'm like, I just said that number as an example. And your body shut down because you decided that that was the number that you're going to attach to. I know you have more in you. There's more gas in the tank. Let's keep going. So how do you pre-coach so that they don't pre-fail?
Well, I think it's two things in that case. One, tell them the why. Like, why is this set so important for metabolic conditioning, for pushing through your physical limits, right? There's a why that they probably need to know. Mm-hmm. And then leave it open-ended. Like, don't give them a number. Just say, like, we're going to squat, as many as you can do. And just don't tell them a number, because the minute you put a number in their head, that's the number that they're trying to usually get to, or just right before. They don't want to push past that number. So in the military, a lot of our training is open-ended. So we're going to go for a run.
That's it? They don't tell you how long?
That's it.
Ooh, I would not make it in the military.
Again, because you get conditioned to know that, okay, at this time, this is going to end. For coaching, with whether it's boxing or training, are you training to standard or you're training to time, right? If it's the standard, you're doing it. This is how we're going to squat. Every rep is going to look this way. But if you're saying it's for time, and either one is okay, but you can't do both. So you just have to look at, how you're training and how you're setting it up and what your end state is for it. So
sometimes it's hard to give an example though without using an actual number, but I'll skip it.
Just say, like, I'm squat till you puke.
Or a 40-second interval.
There you go.
You can
That's when
say
it's over.
3,000.
1,000?
Yeah,
Just
say 1,000.
1 million.
No, it's funny
do
how when
1
you put
million
numbers
people.
up there, people very rarely, if I say, for example, punch out, and I count down for them, I would say 90% of the time, 3 seconds left, they stop because they're so fatigued. It's in their head.
It's a mental
It's a mental thing.
block. Yeah, it's just like I'll have clients that do half marathons and then they'll go do a 10K and the last two, they're like, yeah, I was so tired in the last two. I'm like, it was your brain that shut off. You can do 20 miles easy. I was like, your brain was like, oh, we're almost to the end. We're going to shut it down.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You guys can teach how, a lot of it is just training and flipping a switch on how people think. So in a punch out, they're thinking, well, I'm getting tired as you're counting down. You can start to coach them. No, you're getting stronger and faster as you're counting down. So when I race or train or so I don't want to blow my own horn here, but I did a leg workout the other day and I did just like your set scheme. My last set was 315 for 20 reps.
Oh, we had the same workout.
Yeah. What I did is I told the guy spotting me, it's going to be 16 or better. So in my mind, I just got to get to 16, and then I just got to get 4 more after that. So, but the entire time I'm thinking to myself, every rep I'm doing, I'm getting stronger. I'm not getting more tired. That's just training yourself to think differently. I mean, you run a marathon and think that every mile you could also think that every mile you're getting faster.
Right.
Now, it may not be actually happening, but you can train your mind to think that.
I train all of my runners to do negative splits where the back half is always faster than the first half.
Yep.
Yeah. Take it easy. That's why I'm like, take it easy the first little bit. Ease into
So, I mean,
it.
a lot of it's just mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that applies with stand-up too, like this kind of going back to both worlds.
Yeah.
I remember, you headline a set the first time you headline. So a headlining set is usually 45 minutes to an hour. And I could go back to when I first started, it felt like, I don't got 10 minutes. And when I was thrown to the wolves because the host wasn't in the room or something, you're like, oh, you got that 10 minutes. You might be scratching and clawing a little bit, but it happens over and over, as with like challenges of life. 20 minutes. Oh, can I feature? Headlining spot, and sometimes you gotta cheat around that shit. Like, hey, where are you from again? And the audience member's like, this guy asked me that 12 times today.
There's a dude that sent me a message. Just some Filipino dude that sent me a message. Was just like, I'm a fan of your comedy, blah blah blah.
That shit feels good, right?
Yeah,
that never gets old.
And he was like, I want to get started. Do you have any advice? And usually I don't respond to these things, but I was like,
dirtbag. You don't respond to someone asking for help?
Who cares? Because
you got a mean streak.
Usually what happens is like people don't want stand-up as bad as we want it. They want the title and the accolades that come with it.
You didn't even know this guy. You didn't even answer his question.
But I did answer this guy's question. So I told him, here's the truth. You're going to bomb and it's going to suck. And that's great. Every bomb is making you better. I feel like just like every painful squat is making you better. Every time you fail, reassess and get better from that. And I think I was like, you should
keep that in your notes and copy
that.
And paste it to every open mic that comes in your inbox.
Yeah.
I always
copy and paste the note.
Yeah. I always say just keep showing up.
How many, with a comedian or somebody doing stand-up, how do people actually think they're going to get out there and kill it the first time?
100% of the time.
Oh, yeah, there's crazy
Absolutely.
people out there.
I thought I was going to be discovered off the first open mic.
Yeah. 100% of the time.
Yeah.
To make it in that business, and by far, I haven't made it, but you got to be delusional. You gotta really, but you gotta almost be crazy to get through some of this shit. Like, you gotta be delusional.
You gotta have that frat white guy confidence. You don't deserve it, but you're up there. You know what I mean? Like, you're just like, and that was funny, and you're like, no, it wasn't.
There's a lot of rejection in that game.
A lot
of rejection. You gotta be thick-skinned. You gotta do it over and over, and you gotta learn quickly. Like, you gotta listen to the right people.
There's a lot of self-awareness that has to go. You have to evaluate who you are as a person and how you come off every single night.
The nice thing when you do it for the very first time, but this also might be bad. You say it, this is my first time, and everyone's so nice. 100% of the time. They'll laugh, they'll be with you, they'll clap.
She still says that shit 10
And
years
then,
in.
yeah, that's how I open every single night. Thank you for coming to my headlining spot. This is my first time.
I give you guys a lot. I couldn't do it. I don't have the physical, mental, or emotional toughness to do it. And my response to a bad reaction would not be very nice. So I give you guys a lot of credit.
Which could be
Neither
your
are
thing.
ours either.
Yeah.
Sometimes holy shit. I had a host on Friday, and the first comic didn't show up.
So you had to do a lot of time.
I went from doing a planned 15-minute sets to not knowing that I was doing 30 because I was just trying to fill the entire time, and I was not doing too good. And then when you have to add 15 more minutes of bombing, and I wasn't nice to them.
Yeah, you got mad. You got mad. Yeah.
See, I couldn't do it. Like, I give you guys a lot of credit. You said, hey, you got to go out there for 15 minutes. I would 100% refuse.
Mm-hmm.
Just the other day, someone said, hey, there's a rodeo not too far from where we live. And they said, hey, you would be great riding a bull. I would ride a bull quicker than I would get on stage.
You could do it. I mean, look at Bill Burr. He is angry and all the time. 100%.
You trying to say Sam is angry? I didn't get that from him.
No, but he said he would be angry if he got a poor response.
Here's what you to correlate it to like what I know have learned about you is that like you are honest with the people that you work with. And that's all that stand-up is.
Yes.
Like even if you're in a bad place, the more honest I am with the audience, the better it goes.
So public speaking, like, we give a lot of presentations. So I've spoken to some large groups, but the theory is like, if you can make someone laugh and someone cry, it was a good presentation. So that's kind of what I shoot for every presentation. But
what's your go-to to cry story?
Having a hand amputated, it's pretty good.
Oh,
I got a couple.
You got a couple.
I got a couple.
That's cheating.
It's so interesting because whenever I have to do public speaking and I am not supposed to go for a laugh, like whether it's like a presentation at work or whatever, I'm so much more nervous than when I have to do stand-up. Because I know how to do stand-up. I know like laughter keeps you moving to the next. It's like a checkpoint. But when you're just talking, it's tough.
I know. I've done a lot of fitness panels, and then I always end up joking in the middle of it. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'll get back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. I was in a room full of family and friends having a housewarming party, and I bombed that shit.
Yeah.
I wasn't funny. I wasn't articulate. I was just like all over the place. Someone was looking at their food.
So it was
I was
like a regular Tuesday night for you.
Yeah,
huh?
like a regular Tuesday night at the stand. Yeah, it's a different beast. It requires preparation and practice. It's very rare.
That's anything in life, right?
Right.
Like anything you want to be good at takes preparation and practice.
Yeah,
and
you can't be fucking around out there. You gotta.
So let me ask you guys this: how sustainable is that to make a living? Like, as you're battling to get to.
We'll let you know when we get there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a personal trainer and a comic. I moonlight as a comic, and I own that. So I'm very comfortable with that. But that's what it is, and it's been like that for years.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't deal with just doing. For me, I got family. I couldn't deal with just. Scrambling for spots, being on the road a lot. So training is a strong foundation, and I do my stand-up on the weekends, and I kind of split that. So the pressure is like alleviated. Stand-up is fun for me. But there was a time where I was forced to do it like full-time, and I was unhappy. I was drinking a lot. I was doing spots I wouldn't normally do for the money. So I compromised myself in a lot of ways. It was a huge sacrifice. I didn't really pay off, but there's other people who could do that. It's just where I was at. That was my personal experience.
I used to do weekends headlining, and I would also, the only way I could survive is if I Airbnb'd my place while I was gone.
Oh, okay.
And I'd come back, and I was like, I hate my life.
Yeah.
Some stranger was in here drinking disgusting red alcohol, and now it's everywhere, So I did not.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad we had the pandemic. I was like, I have a life again.
When you guys talk about it, the one thing that I take from it is that the importance of it, because no matter how the set's going, like you're making someone feel better about their day, their situation. You have the opportunity to make someone smile. I think that's a huge, especially with all that's going on. I think we need more of that stuff. So just hearing it, that's what I was thinking about, hearing you guys talk about it, that it may seem trivial. I mean, I guess that's the idea, is to make people laugh, but you can sort of, transport people away from some of their everyday problems and put them in a better place for a short time. So I think that's a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah, so maybe we should stay cynical so that we can keep people laughing,
Yeah, just sad clowns.
Just sad
That's all that we're going to be, is sad fucking clowns.
So sorry, we can't do the program. We have to we have to stay
Can't be
failures.
Emotionally present for you,
Nope.
family, because I got to go make these guys laugh at 8:30.
It sounds like you're doing it because you truly love it. You're not doing it for, obviously you want to get discovered and, you see the big picture, but you're doing it because you're passionate about it. You have to be, right? So I think that's
I was talking
that's pretty awesome.
I was talking with my just a group of friends, and we were like wondering, like, what is it? When do you define label someone a comedian? When are they a comic? Because it's not when you do one open mic. It's not when you do 2 years of open mics even. And then one of my friends was like, it's when you start paying bills off of this. And then I was like, well, then I'm not a comedian, because I've always had a second job, and
I've always felt the same way. And people are loose. Some people have been doing comedy 6 hours, and they're like, I'm a comedian.
Yeah.
I'm like, dogs.
Well, and then
slow down.
Casey Aurora, great guy,
Yeah.
good friend of mine, texted me. He's like, that's not when this is when you're a comedian. It's when you've changed your life for it. Like when you've lost
you've
a
always been a
girlfriend,
comedian.
you've lost I moved here. I left everything behind to chase this. And he's like, you're a comic. I don't know. He felt like he needed to text me that because I think he maybe thought I was sad when I said I'm not a comic. I was fine with it.
No, yeah, I think no doubt a stand-up comic, good one at that. But but I think, and you can even say comedian. But I think comedian is like the like a stand-up. It's like stand-up comic then comedian. Will you put those two separate? I put them separate.
Oh, I put them together.
Oh, you put them together? I feel like comedian was like career, like. I'm always associated with
the
that.
comedian.
Yeah.
Like a Jerry Seinfeld. Wilfred, what do you think your biggest struggle in life or work is?
Currently?
Yes.
Currently.
Yes. Sam, get ready. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Good.
Can I come back to this? Sam, do you got one?
What? No. What's yours?
What was the question again?
What do you think is your biggest always obstacle in life or work?
Oh, okay.
You know what?
Like the reason why you're not fulfilling your potential.
Hang on. It's I need to interrupt this for one quick second to introduce my favorite sponsor of all time. I know you guys have probably heard about them, but they are killer. They are loyal, and it is the most fun strategy game that you could ever have on your handheld computer, your iPhone or your Google phone, all of your apps. Anyway, it is Best Fiends. Best Fiends is a strategy game with unlimited number of levels. It's insane. You can never get bored with this. I don't know if they're tech guys or they're gamer, whatever they're called, are working around the clock, but they create new characters that are so freaking adorable all the time. And there's new levels and there's new challenges. So I'm obsessed with it. I am. And I'm going to take a flight later today. So I will play it for about 5 hours on my way to Texas. So yeah, make sure to download Best Fiends. That's Best Friends without the R, even though it will be your best friend. So that's Best Fiends without the R from your Apple App Store or on your Google phone. Yeah, get it. It's worth it. Def. You will love them. And I love them because they have been on this podcast for 2.5 years strong. I listen to other podcasts. They sponsor other podcasts. Support them. They support all of us podcasters so we can bring this content to you. So absolutely download them. Best Fiends that's Best Friends without the R. Okay. Anyway, sorry about that. Let's get back into it.
I honestly don't feel that way. I think I have too many great things in my life that I enjoy that I just spread myself too thin. But I have a lot of different things that I really enjoy. So maybe I spread myself too thin with a bunch of shit I enjoy, but that's living life. But I don't really have.
I don't think you're living up to your potential. We'll get back to you. What's yours?
I think my biggest struggle.
Maybe I put too much on my plate. My bad.
No,
self-sabotage myself.
Maybe your standards suck for how your life could be so much better. You could be a much bigger comedian.
Sergio, I think you're great. I think you're doing great.
Wilfred, don't be a pussy.
And
I have
Yes.
I make well over $20,000 a year. And I own a pair of retro Jordans.
One pair.
And
also, we need to get you a car that fits more than 1.5 people.
Yeah, no, you're the embodiment of someone who likes to consume too much.
No, I don't. I don't.
No, I think honestly, and it's funny that I say that out loud, it might be I spread myself too thin to set myself up to reach a ceiling that's a little lower, because I'm involved in so many different things that I do enjoy. Maybe I need to focus on one thing at a time.
If you're happy, you're happy.
Yeah, she's compromising my happiness with hard questions.
You don't get to chime in on this. Sam, what do you think about specifically
Judging by my body language.
Specifically Sergio.
I'm happy.
I'm not going to give advice, but I did read, I believe it was Elon Musk said, everyone's good at multiple things, but just pick 3 and be great at those 3 things. So maybe that's just pick 3 things and be the best you can at those 3. So when I heard you say that, that's kind of what I thought of. I think it was Elon Musk. What holds me back, where I've had issues, my ego. I have a tendency to let my ego get out in front of me. When you're a confident, one-handed guy, you walk in a room, I have to be the most confident, one-handed person in there. And when that happens, it's easy to let your ego get out in front of you. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I've probably made some poor life choices with women and some other. I think so. My ego is probably the thing that I've got to always keep that in check of, recognizing you're not the most important person in the room. And, don't let that thing get out in front of you.
Yeah, everybody's important. Wilfred, did you figure out what your obstacle is?
I think my biggest obstacle is not looking at other people's plates. You look at on Instagram and everything, and it looks like everyone's eating so good. But I have to remember that I've got a good meal in front of me, and like my life is good. And
so gratitude. That's also sort of ego, right?
Yeah, it's very ego based as well, because I'm like, oh, why are they getting this when I'm funnier than them or whatever, So how do you guys, Sam, how did you do the work to work on your ego?
I got to be self-aware. I mean, for me, it's self-awareness. When you make yourself the center of attention, you become the center of attention. And it's for whatever reason, it's always been easy for me. Mm-hmm. So I got to really put myself in check on certain things.
Yeah, for me, it's instead of saying, "Oh, look at what they're getting," I'm now going, "Well, I could just be working harder." Like, why don't instead of going on Instagram and looking at what show people someone's on, why I could just be writing a joke instead.
That's a good idea. And your screen time was down
for a week. We're back.
So ask yourself that question. What do you think for you personally?
I think. This is my own therapizing myself. Maybe I'm scared to be super successful, and I put other people's, like significant others, family members' success in front of mine, and I push them hard and help them and support them, and then they become a success, and I've completely neglected mine. I know. I'm trying to be better, but every once in a while I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing it again.
Do you think that's why you become such a good coach?
Yes, I am a great coach, but there is a backdrop. There is a downside to that. You have your own skills that you should be honing, you know? So we give a lot to our clients, and then sometimes there's not always something left. And so I always prioritize. Now I've learned, do my workout first in the morning.
Hell
100%.
yeah.
Hell yeah.
I do that right before I see my clients. Not only am I super energized, but I'm super present. If I knock out the workout, there's no way I'm going to want to work out after 6 sessions.
No.
Give myself an hour beforehand.
I don't think there's anything wrong with being selfish, like in self-care. So like recognizing that you got to take care of you and getting your workout in before your clients. Because ultimately, you take care of you take better care of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree 100% with that. Yeah.
And then you're not resentful of their workout.
Warren Buffett said it. Be good at 3 things. Be great at 3 things.
Well, that's a great source also.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
He's a more reliable source than I think Elon Musk is.
Yeah, it was Warren Buffett.
Yeah. I think Elon Musk, because everyone's got so many negative connotations.
Yeah,
with
Warren
Elon.
Buffett has a little more kind of swag, especially with his socializing skills. Elon Musk is a tough listen.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, give that guy some more weed because he's tough.
Yeah. Warren Buffett.
I saw him on Rogan. I was like this. I was like, is this particular show sponsored by Ambien? Because holy shit, I am falling asleep here. But a super interesting dude. I guess you can't have it all, right? I mean, he's changing the world.
Sort of.
But goddamn, it was tough.
Yeah. Wilfred, I feel like the way that you're approaching it, it's a little hard on yourself.
What do you mean?
Like you're like don't look at those other people, just work harder. And you're like, that's not real. I don't know.
I mean, we talked about the screen time.
Yes.
That's a lot of hours to not be like doing something. I'm not necessarily being like, okay, instead of
How many hours are you, Sam? How many hours are you on your phone?
Sam, don't fuck around.
Tell us the
truth. Like social media?
No, I like your screen time report when you get it every week.
How do I do that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was just looking at it last night. So do you have your phone with you, Sam?
Yeah.
So you go to settings.
Wait, hold on.
And then we'll all do this, right? And then screen time, it's under do not disturb from my phone.
Got it.
Settings.
And then mine today at 2:15 p.m. Mine is at 3 hours and 51 minutes.
Today.
And that's just me looking at Instagram, me like just like fucking around on the internet. That's 3 hours where I could have been doing something else. I didn't do anything productive on my phone today other than defend myself while Sergio was texting about how short my shorts were.
Well, I just turned mine on, so it says 2 seconds.
Oh, wow.
See, I told you I was right. I said, Sam, don't fuck around.
Yeah.
He don't
1
have
hour
that
and
issue.
17 minutes.
But now I'm going to track it now.
Yeah, you should. It's interesting.
I don't really, social media pisses me off because I think people only post what they want people to see. I don't think it's actual representation of their lifestyles. And I guess I get it, you have to do that. And I don't understand the concept that everyone thinks what they're doing is so important that the world needs to see it. Like, come on, dude, you just did a workout. Like, you and everyone else.
Also, I feel like my workouts suck when I do put my workouts up because just like David Goggins, I do get a lot of messages that are like, you working out every day inspires me to work out. So I'm like, fine, I'll put it up. But it does get in the way of your workout when you have to stop and record it. Isn't that a pain in the ass?
Yeah, it is a pain. But it feels like it's somewhat. So I allow someone else's work to be the highlight reel most of the time. Like if a client insists, a lot of times they don't even ask me. They film themselves doing it. It's a slice, and they post it. I post it, and it does generate attention. I have gotten more clients that way, but I don't bank on that, and I don't look forward to that, but I will post it. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's in a lot of ways harmless enough, but a little bit silly. Like, don't get it twisted. That's not the work right there. That's not what matters. What matters is the actual training.
I get my referrals from clients to get results, but you can have your way too.
What do you mean?
Cute.
What do you mean?
I said my clients that get results.
I was like, well, you're breaking up. I didn't hear you.
Would you guys record pieces of like your sets, like and post that? Like, would that get you more?
I do it.
Yeah, I should.
I mean, that makes sense to me. I mean, that's your job, right? Like, it's exposure. So I get that.
I feel like with stand-up, the number of followers you have is a way to measure success. It sucks that's a fact, but that is a fact. The more successful you are as a comedian equates to how many followers you have in Instagram.
Or you could just have a nice ass in a bikini.
And I've been trying. That's what these shorts are for. But no one takes pictures of me.
Killing it. Sam, thank you so much for taking the time. How can, speaking of social media and how much you hate it, how can people find you?
Theprogram.org for leadership and team development. We have a book out. The program, it's all available on Amazon. if anyone's looking for leadership development, team building in their, companies or their organizations or their teams, we appreciate it, and we're definitely here to help. So thank you guys for having me on. I learned a lot. Got some things to think about. So I really do appreciate it. I learned some stuff.
Sam, I would advise, don't think much about what we have to say. We're not smart people. We're just three people that talk to each other in a sometimes funny manner.
Sam, you're the man. I appreciate your time, brother.
Yeah, so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Where can we find you, Wilfred?
At Wilfred Padua. I'm going to be on the road, so look out for some dates.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, also, if your son gets caught smoking weed again, easy. I don't want to hear about karate kicks to the chest.
No.
And if he needs a weed dealer, my number is 917. BBS Podcast, Sergio Chicone. Have fun with you guys. Thank you.
Which is also on the Be Frank Network with H&A Pod. So check us out there at H&A Pod on Instagram. Or follow me directly at Mara Merrick. Follow Sergio directly. Follow Sam directly. All right, love you guys.
Peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you guys.